Well, hey, Travis, thank you. Welcome. Welcome to 301 West Bay. Thank you for being part of the Downtown Jacksonville podcast that we got going.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you a native? Did you grow up here?
I'm a native of Jacksonville. I'm a fourth generation native of Jacksonville. So my family has called Jacksonville home for quite some time.
Man,
Yeah.
so have you seen a few things change, or have you seen a few things stay the same?
I've seen both.
Okay.
I've seen some changes and I've seen some stuff stay the same, but I do think more of the former is happening. There's definitely more change.
Yeah.
I don't believe we're the rendering city that we were for a long time. Cranes in the sky, ground being broken, so I do see change.
Yeah. What is your organization? What do you do, as it relates to downtown Jacksonville?
So, just personally, I grew up in an urban core neighborhood.
Okay.
So the historic East Side, or Out East as we called it growing up.
Yep.
I've worked downtown. My first job working downtown was back in 2008 at City Hall.
Okay.
And my first practice business that I had was in Riverside, so one of the kind of enclaves of downtown. So most of my professional existence and then personally being near and in downtown and around downtown. So I have an affinity for the urban core, and then get a chance to do work now with an organization called Lift JAX that is doing work in the historic East Side neighborhood, my neighborhood of birth. And urban neighborhoods impact downtown, and then downtown impacts urban core neighborhoods too. So there's a lot of continuity between what we're trying to do in the neighborhood of the East Side and then what's happening in downtown Jacksonville.
Yeah. So what is going on in the East Side? What's the vision for the East Side? And first, define East Side. Are there set boundaries, or is it just kind of general?
Yeah. So think of pre-consolidation Jacksonville.
Okay.
So when Arlington wasn't Jacksonville proper, it was Duval County, and so the historic East Side neighborhood is east of historic Jacksonville pre-consolidation.
Okay.
So think of the area just north of the Sports and Entertainment District.
Yep.
The area that is west of Talleyrand.
Yep.
So that neighborhood, and if you go up north, up to the streets that kind of get into the 20s, 21st Street and beyond.
Okay.
Those enclaves, Phoenix Avenue and Out 21st as we call it, and then Florida Avenue Commercial Corridor, which is now A. Philip Randolph Boulevard. That area encompasses the historic East Side, and then really east of Springfield. So Springfield butts up. We're neighboring communities, the East Side and Springfield.
So some of the developments that are going on specifically in your district, if you will, are the Union Terminal Warehouse.
Yes.
Right? What was your organization's, role, or how did you guys, work with Columbia Ventures?
No real role.
Okay.
It's just happening in the neighborhood. No real role in the development, but definitely forming a partnership in making sure that development is a part of the neighborhood.
Sure.
And so early on, it was making sure the language speaks to this building is in the East Side. It's not in another neighborhood. It's not really in downtown.
Right.
It is in the East Side neighborhood. And so how do we partner with them in marketing it as such, in making sure that residents feel welcome in the building. And so it's been great to get to know them and be along for the ride in many ways, and making sure that the history of the East Side, arts, culture-wise, that the neighborhood and this history gets a chance to be a part of it. So I've enjoyed getting to know the guys at Columbia, and it's an amazing project, and I'm looking forward to it opening here soon.
So it sounds like you're definitely very local. When you do go outside of downtown Jacksonville, are there cities that you visited across the country or across the world where you're like, man, like this city gets it. Like this is really cool. Like, do any cities come to mind?
There are a bunch that come to mind, but I would say the ones that are most relevant to Jacksonville. I mean, there's some cities, like I did a short stint living in Singapore. Our downtown is never going to be Singapore's downtown.
Hopefully not.
but beauty and architecture, and it's just fascinating. But there are cities that, like Tampa. Tampa's the closest example that I can think of. Tampa once was our sister city.
Yep.
I would not call Tampa our sister city at this point, but similarities in the water, right? Having a waterfront that runs through it.
Yep.
That major asset of the water and the way they've been able to activate it and make it a sense of place and where people want to be, walkability. The way they've been able to successfully do that, I think it's a blueprint for our city because we do have an amazing riverfront.
Yep.
And how do we make that this centric asset that has all this activity around it?
Sure. I mean, there's plenty of cities that have rivers and riverfronts that are beautiful that have done it, what I'll say is the wrong way. Like I grew up in St. Louis, and St. Louis has the Mississippi River, nice and gorgeous, but their downtown is not, going in the right direction. How do we as a city make sure that we end up like Tampa, not like St. Louis?
Yeah.
Nothing against St. Louis. I love St. Louis, but I don't want to be St. Louis.
Yeah, well, I don't know how St. Louis is getting it wrong. You may be able to speak to that, how they're getting it wrong, but the chamber took a trip to Tampa several years ago that I got a chance to participate in. And I think one of the challenges we've had is this long obedience to a big idea.
Long obedience to a big idea.
Right.
That's good.
How do you stay long-term committed to one vision? And Tampa was able to do that. We got a chance to meet Mayor Buckholz, I believe is his name, was a long-term Tampa mayor. And sometimes you have these fits and stops and you don't get a chance to stick at something prolonged. And having some of the private folks that they had that invested in Tampa really made it easy to say, this is a long-term thing. Development is very long-term.
Yeah.
We're not going to start over with a new administration or start over with a new public official. We're going to buy into something long-term, and having that private sector partner.
Yeah.
And Vivek, I believe, is the gentleman's name.
Vinick, yeah.
Vinick, yeah.
Yep.
To me, that was the biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
Was they committed long-term, and then the public sector was able to do its job of committing long-term too. And one of the things that Mayor Buckholz talked about a lot was one of the things that the public sector can do is build these amazing projects that private developers want to be near.
Yeah.
So parks, green spaces, activating those with a high level of quality, where a private developer says, I want to be next to that thing that the public sector did. So that long obedience, I think, is the biggest thing. And if we can, I think we're there. Like, there's some stuff coming out of the ground that has taken time, but if we stay at it, and the private sector, public sector stays at it, I think we get that momentum.
So you mentioned Vinick in Tampa. He owns the Tampa Bay Lightning. You've got Shad, another billionaire here in Jacksonville that owns the Jaguars. Do you foresee him and maybe some of his billionaire friends, possibly coming into Jacksonville? Would that help? I mean, I would think that would help do the same thing that Tampa did, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't, I haven't. I don't spend a lot of time with Shad.
No, his boat was just parked.
Yeah,
right out
I
here.
walk by it. It's a beautiful boat, fascinating boat. I walk by it and just to check it out.
Yeah.
But I would say he's definitely put his money where his mouth is in many ways with projects.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 years ago, people did not believe a Four Seasons was coming to Jacksonville. It was kind of laughable to some people.
Right.
And making that type of investment, of course, in the sports and entertainment district, that major investment, what they're going to do with Met Park.
Yeah.
There's a lot of investment that can create a ripple effect and can create that energy that other development around it builds off on. So builds off of. So I think in some ways he's doing it in a big way.
Yeah.
And delivering on a Four Seasons type investment. Of course, there's always more that we want billionaires to do.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more they can do, but
yeah.
What are those other ancillary things that come around those major nodes? Mosh Museum going next door, right?
Absolutely.
So like, okay, what happens down Bay Street?
Yeah.
How does that corridor? And then for us, in the area of the east side, in our commercial corridor for April Randolph, we're trying to build a neighborhood corridor that complements a lot of that major investment that's happening just north.
Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that neighborhood core that's supporting, the sports entertainment district.
Yeah, well, a lot of stadiums and districts are next to neighborhoods.
Sure.
And we have some amazing neighborhood corridors in Jacksonville. So you got St. John's Avenue in Avondale, you got San Marcos Square, and these are amazing urban corridors that are thriving and bustling. And in this heyday, historic Florida Avenue was that as well. Challenges historically in our American experience have produced the condition of a lot of the urban African American corridors.
Mm-hmm.
But what we still have is this footprint that feeds into, there's only two major arteries that feed into where the Four Seasons and Sports and Entertainment District is.
Right.
Bay Street,
Right.
April Randolph. And so the opportunity, there's risk associated with high proximate development, but there's also a lot of opportunity. And so historic Florida Avenue has an opportunity to build this district that has rich history, art, culture,
Yep.
that honors the art and history that's there. But it's a sense of place where if you're staying at the Four Seasons, you want to go to Florida Avenue for a restaurant that you can't get anywhere else, or a breakfast spot that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so urban corridors can produce that experience that is very unique to the place and the people, for the been there's,
Yeah.
but as well as the come there's. And we're going to have some come there's that are able to spend $1,300 a month or a night on a hotel room.
On a hotel room, sure.
That, man, walk a half a mile down or bike
Yeah.
a half a mile down to this amazing restaurant.
Yeah.
And so that's what an urban commercial corridor in a neighborhood that's proximate to the sports entertainment district, that's what it gets an opportunity
And so
to do.
can the government assist with that? What role does the government play in that? Or would you prefer that the government just kind of like, hey, just don't get in our way. Like, just don't be a roadblock. Are there things that they can do? Or?
No, man, I think I don't think government taking that passive, we don't want to get in the way role is helpful.
Okay.
In any development.
Okay.
If you look at the best cities and urban cores, development has played a very active role in that. And so public-private partnerships
Yep.
are really helpful.
Yep.
Incentives that government provides, you need those.
Okay.
Some deals don't work
Right.
without them. And so, we have parks on our corridor, and we've been able to work a lot with the Parks Department,
Yep.
Public Works, the condition of streets.
Yep.
But all that is infrastructure. That's government. Government does it, and so being able to have a vision that we can put forth,
Right.
government plays into that, and them bringing their investments in what they do, and then on the private side bringing investments as well, and then all of a sudden 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2; it equals maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah. So this is a very, not tricky question, but it's a very hard question to answer, and I don't think anybody actually has the answer. How do you get the Jacksonville area to a point where you really don't need government incentives to pencil deals? For example, downtown Miami, like Brickell Avenue, they're putting up skyscrapers, they're putting up brand new office buildings. There's no city, or government money that's available. The deals pencil on their own. In downtown Jacksonville and probably the rest of Jacksonville, the deals don't pencil right now. How do we figure out how to get office rents to be $50 a square foot? How do we get retail rents to be $150 a foot? How do we grow, the community as a whole? Does UF help with their announcement? With the Semiconductor Institute. What are some things that you wish we had as a community?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't think I've got the answer, but I would say I think the uniqueness of Jacksonville
Okay.
is part of the opportunity and the problem with that question, because Miami proper
Yeah.
is, I don't know how many square miles, right? It's
Fair.
the city.
Fair.
Jacksonville is 800 square miles.
Yeah. Largest city in America
Largest
by
city in
land
America,
mass. Yep.
and it is, and so where you have other cities where their county has multiple cities, That's not the luxury we have. And so density and concentration is sometimes a little more difficult for us.
Yeah.
And I think some of that, the market conditions that like a Miami has, because it's so densely populated
Yeah.
and there's so much concentration, that it's going to take us some time to get to that spot where the density is there. But I think, yeah, things like UF, some of the housing, the Gateway Project,
Yeah.
if you have all the people living, working, playing, resting, doing everything in a densely populated urban core, we just have to balance that with, okay, the town center
Yeah.
in another city, that may not even be Jacksonville.
Sure.
It's county, but it's not Jacksonville.
Sure.
That is Jacksonville.
Would you be a proponent of, I don't know that this would ever happen, but would you be a proponent of changing that? Would you say, listen, we need to be more like the rest of the country, and let's have let's have Jacksonville City, and then let's have Murray Hill City, let's have, Southside City, and kind of change the landscape? Is that even possible?
We're so far down this path
Yeah.
that I've never even spent mental capacity like thinking about
All right, fair.
how that could, how or if that could happen.
Fair. The downtown, or I guess West Palm Beach, they're now, over the last 5 years, they're known as like the Wall Street of the South. Austin is weird. What is Jacksonville's identity? And if we don't have one, should we have one? What is our identity? What should we be known for?
Yeah, that's a good question. All the data shows that Jacksonville was one of the biggest migration points during COVID.
Yes.
And thousands of people migrated to this city. They
Yes.
could have chosen multiple people. We're not the only city in Florida that doesn't have a state tax. All the cities in Florida don't have a state tax.
Right.
And so there's something that drew them here. And part of it, I think, is the complexity of our natural resources.
Okay.
So you have a city that has riverfront,
Yep.
that has beach, that has intercoastal, that has rural, all in one. And that is a draw because you don't get that in a lot of the places. I think the great work that Andre and the folks at JAX USA and Chamber have done in making this a financial tech hub has definitely put it on the map. And we just had another recent announcement of another company who's going to put their headquarters here.
Yep.
I think on the business side, that's there. But I think we're like wrestling between this quaint, not as busy as some of the other places where people want to live. They're like, man, I want to raise a family in a place like this, versus going down the path to where people say, okay, this is too much.
Yeah.
I don't want to raise my family here anymore.
Sure.
It's like, how do you find that balance between the two? And so
Yeah.
I don't know if there's one identity in that, but the people that I know who've moved here since 2020, people from New York, I was just this morning with someone who's from New York, and she's like, this is an amazing place. I'm born and raised in New York. I've lived that life. I live on the river now. It would have cost me 4 times to get something like this in another city. And so I think the affordability is an identity,
Absolutely.
but the physical landscape that we have is a draw, but we need that epicenter of a downtown
Yeah.
that complements the natural resource we have. And then we have the river, which is another natural resource. So
Sure.
I think that's part of the identity.
Yeah.
Way long, too much of an answer. But
No.
it's
I
part
mean,
of it.
look, if you to add on, if you've got suburban, places to raise families that are much cheaper than other parts of the state and other parts of the country, that's a plus. If you have a vibrant downtown to attract, young folks, and if you're in college, where do you go out now for a good time? Where do you go catch a concert? There's a few bars out at the beach. But that's kind of it. You're left with like Applebee's, So how, is it possible, or how do we get higher end, not higher end, but like, how do we get a retail base
Yes.
down here in downtown with vibrant, nightlife and clubs? Can we be the music scene of, the region? I mean, those are all the things that I'm trying to figure out how we get them. I think we all agree that it's a good idea. How do we do it? That's That's more the question.
That's the $1 million question.
Right.
And there's some developments that are happening, I think, going to bring some of that. This big gateway development, 25 blocks.
Sure.
I think that's going to bring some of that. And then Met Park, Met Park coming back open with the outside theater that's supposed to be there. The Daily Stadium that's already there. It's just more concentration and more continuity of those things. Even though they're close by, there's a separation. Like you can't walk with that walkability, right?
Yeah.
Is a struggle. It's not there. And so more of these things popping up to where you could spend 15 minutes, 20 minutes walking. I think that's a big miss too, is again, more concentration of these things. And projects like Gateway, again, coming out, no plug for Gateway, it's just, it's going to have a lot of what we're talking about. Projects like that, the park project where the landing used to be.
Yes.
Those kind of projects happening.
Yes.
That's going to bring that stickiness to, and even like during the day, like we work downtown.
Right.
There's just stuff we don't have that you need during the day. There's no grocery store.
Yeah, grocery store, pharmacy.
Pharmacy, those kind of things. I think we need that kind of those daytime assets along with the nightlife assets too.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. If you were to run for mayor, what would what would be kind of your vision or your agenda? Would it be tackling homeless? Would it be moving the jail? Would it be what would kind of day one look like in your administration?
That's a funny question. I think for me, how do you build a coalition?
Okay.
I don't know what the idea would be, because I don't know what would be happening in Jacksonville at the time. Maybe the downtown is booming, and if that was happening in the future. But how do you build the right coalition for long-term obedience to good ideas?
Okay.
Right? How do you bring the right people around? How do you set the right table?
Right.
To where if there's a good idea that's already in place, how do you not come in and want to do something that's just new because it's new?
Yeah.
But how do you build that coalition and say, hey, these are the things that are going right?
Yeah.
These are the things that we need to continue to build momentum on. And how do we double down on the good stuff?
Okay.
How do we double down on it and be okay to take those chances of, I think the enemy of doing something is trying to do everything.
Okay.
And so how do you double down on the stuff that has a lot of
Working.
energy around it and build the right people, put the right people in place to say we're going to commit long term to this and see it through.
Yeah.
And there may be other things that we can't do,
Yeah.
but we do these things really right,
Yeah.
then we'll have had success. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what comes to mind for me is setting the right table with the right folks to make a long-term commitment to the good stuff that's happening and continuing to do it. And then what are the additional things that need to happen? That's what the people is what comes to mind for me. Who are the people that a mayor can pull together to get stuff done?
So how do people get?
No chances to run for any office, by the way, but good.
No?
Good question.
No? All right.
No.
Well,
No.
you never know. You never know.
Yeah. Maybe.
How do people get in touch with you and your organization if they want to know more about Eastside, and then specifically, like, if they want to learn about what's going on in the retail corridor that you referenced?
Yeah.
How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So I'll give a little context. One of the cool things about Florida Avenue, which is the historic name,
Yep.
is it was just designated as Jacksonville's first Main Street district.
Okay.
So again, one of those tools in the toolkit that other cities have, so like Tampa or St. Pete,
Yeah.
they have a Main Street district. Main Street is another tool. It's very much tied to the federal Trust for Historic Preservation, so it has a bit public sector feel to it. So it's all about economic development through historic preservation. And so that's a tool that Jacksonville's never had.
Okay.
And so now A. Randolph and Historic Florida Avenue is a designated Main Street district. And that's a tool that hopefully will help us catalyze the revitalization of that district, But hopefully it's a tool that other districts, urban core districts, start to use as well. So
Okay.
we have a new Florida Avenue Main Street organization led by an amazing leader, Nigel Khan,
Okay.
who just started recently, is leading that work. So you can go to FloridaAvenueMainStreet.org or
FloridaAvenueMainStreet.org.
.org
Okay.
or anywhere on social media platforms.
Okay.
Lift JAX is a neighborhood organization, so
Okay.
we focus on neighborhood revitalization. We use a national model called Purpose-Built Communities.
Purpose-built communities.
Purpose-built communities.
Is that ULI? Is that stem from Urban Lane Institute, or
No.
it's just all it's on its own? Okay.
Yep. So Purpose-Built is a national platform.
Okay.
And it's about neighborhood revitalization. And our organization does get a chance to work with a colleague of mine, David Garfunkel, that leads that work. And so our vision is really tied to the neighborhood's vision for itself. And we work with an ecosystem of organizations. So Historic Eastside CDC,
Okay.
led by Suzanne Pickett, which is a neighborhood CDC in Choteau.
Okay.
And all of us are working in the ecosystem of improving and bringing investments to revitalize a neighborhood and doing it in a way that does not lead to displacement.
Okay.
And so there's neighborhoods like in South Florida that were once thriving urban core
Sure.
minority neighborhoods, but they've been displaced.
Sure.
Or some people may use the word gentrification. So
Sure.
we're trying to improve, or withintrify is the term we like to use,
Okay.
the neighborhood from
I haven't
within.
heard that. Okay.
So withintrification is how do you build a neighborhood from within?
From within.
And have those same maybe outcomes of new look,
Yeah.
feel, investment, but without displacing the people that are there.
Sure.
And that's the lens that we try to do that work in. The framework of Purpose-Built helps us at least have a frame for how those investments can flow.
Okay. Super cool.
Yeah. So Lift JAX, all the social media platforms, you can find out about our work
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Good. So last question. I didn't tell you that I was going to ask this, but it's kind of a something a little bit about you. If there was a book written about you, what would the title be?
Man, that is a good question, man.
And I didn't give you this question in advance on purpose.
That's a good question.
You can get back to us if you'd like.
Man, so I'll tell you, I don't know, maybe we'll stumble into a title here.
All right.
My passion is, I like developing people and stuff.
Developing people and stuff.
Like that is, I love connecting people. It kind of goes back to the question you had about the mayor. I love being able to set a table with people and work to get stuff done.
Okay.
People who are smarter than me, know more, but bringing them together to say, hey, this is the thing we want to get done.
Okay.
How do we work together to get this done? And how do you manage personalities?
Yeah.
How do you engage people to get them agreeing on the same thing? You know, leadership is not about doing stuff, it's about getting stuff done through other people.
Done, right?
Doing stuff with and through others. And so if there's a book about me, it would be about a person that tried to do amazing things with other amazing people, whether that was personally, trying to lead an amazing family with my wife
Yeah.
and kids. Faith is really important to me, and that work is only done with other people.
Yeah.
You don't live out faith by yourself. And then work. There's
Yeah.
an ecosystem of amazing people that sometimes I get a chance to play a leadership role or a support role, but it's all about how do we bring folks together to do amazing work. So if there's a book about me, hopefully it would be about the person that helped make a bunch of great deals and things happen with other
Building
people, man.
through others.
Yeah, man.
How about that?
Yeah,
right.
that's what the book will hopefully
Well, good.
be about.
Well, listen, this has been great. I really, really appreciate the time. Would love to continue the conversation.
Yeah,
and
this is fun.
any way that we can help, and continue the conversation, would love to. But we appreciate the time.
This was fun, man. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Thank you, man.
All right, man.
Thanks.
Yep.